In section 12.1, we're going to have to do a few things here. So it's going to be about functions that involve square roots. So the first thing you're going to have to do is evaluate a given function. Okay, so the directions will say evaluate the function y equals 3 square root of x minus 4 for the given value x equals 16. Give exact answers. This means do not punch this into your calculator and try to give me a decimal. That is bad. So you're going to plug the given number into the function for the x. So y equals 3 square root of 16 minus 4. Now I'm going to simplify. I have to do what's under the square root first. So 16 minus 4 is 12. Now I can't multiply the 3 and the 12 because one's under the square root and one's not. So if you are still left with a number under the radical sign, simplify the radical and leave your answer in radical form. Do not ever give decimal answers. So 3 square root of 12. Remember, we break down square roots by what numbers multiplied make 12. And one of them has to be a perfect square. I'm going to bring this 3 outside. Bring it right down. And everybody's being multiplied. Square root of 4 is 2, so keep my 3 that was there. Now the square root of 4 became a regular 2 times the square root of 3. Now I'm allowed to multiply these numbers, so my answer is 6 square root of 3. That's it. You could say equals y, but you don't really have to. Okay, so your answer needs to always be in a simplest radical form, no decimals. So your calculator will help you break down the square root, but it's not going to give you the answer. So, got to use your brain. The second thing you're going to be asked to do is to find the domain of a function. Well, the domain is your x values. And what this really means is what numbers can I plug in for x and get an answer? So, you can't have any fractions. Okay, there's two types of problems you're going to see. The first type of fractions are where you have no fractions. Or first type of problem, sorry. So you see in this equation, or this function here, there's no fractions. It's not great, but there's no fractions. So, since the x is under the square root, the expression under the square root must be greater than or equal to 0, meaning because you can't square root a negative number. So I'm just going to take this part that's under the square root, and I'm going to set that greater than or equal to 0. So I'm going to say 3 plus x has to be greater than or equal to 0 because I can't square root a negative number. You can square root 0 though, so that's why I put the little line under it. Now I solve this inequality, so I subtract 3 from both sides, and I get x is greater than or equal to negative 3. And that's done. But be sure to write your answer as an inequality, not an equation. That's what it says under here. I'm going to have to make that go away so I can scroll up for you. Okay, so you write your answer as an inequality, not an equation, and we got x is greater than or equal to negative 3. Do not say x equals negative 3, okay? It's not an equation, it's got to be an inequality. Alright, so the second type of problem is where you are going to have a fraction. Okay, so where x is in the denominator. So this you're going to have two parts. So the first you're going to set up an inequality for the part containing the radical, just like we did. So I take just what's under the square root, so 3x plus 1, that has to be greater than or equal to 0. Now I solve it and divide. And I get x is greater than or equal to negative 1/3. That's part of my answer. Now, remember where we talked about being undefined in 11.4? Find where the expression is undefined by setting the denominator equal to 0. So x minus 4 equals 0. And then you solve that. And you get x equals 4. But because this is where it's bad, okay, I'm going to write this as x can't equal 4. That's what that means. Okay, because if I put 4 in up here for x, I get 4 minus 4, which is 0, which is bad. So domain wants to know where is it good, so it's good when x doesn't equal 4. It's a little confusing, I know. I'm sorry. And that's it. So there's 12.1. So 2 types of things. 1, you're just going to have to be asked to evaluate the function. So take the x value, plug it in, and simplify your answer. Don't give me a decimal. And 2, find the domain. I believe most of them are like this, where you just take what's under the square root and make it greater than or equal to 0. But in case there's a fraction one, you just also need to check for it being undefined in the bottom. All right, so that's 12.1.